Oh, what a reunion we have here today.
I know. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited. Erika, and welcome back to Seeing Other People.
Thank you.
It has been like 2 years,
I
maybe
was trying
3.
to remember, probably, and like really before we knew each other. So this is more fun.
It was like a random one of us reached out to the
I
other,
know,
and
which
then
I
it just
love.
happened. And now here we are years later.
2 nice Jewish girls in New York.
I've heard that tale before.
Yeah.
You are absolutely killing it.
Thank you.
Your business, A Little Nudge, completely has taken off. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I love seeing the advice that you give on social media. I imagine a lot of it is behind the scenes to your clients, but the advice that you are giving, you are so in the spirit of like telling someone the hard truth and what they need to hear, which I've always been really bad at. I've gotten better at it over the years, but I really admire and respect the work you do and how you do it.
I appreciate that. It is hard. It is hard to be the messenger. And it took me years, honestly, to feel comfortable telling people the thing that I think is holding them back. Mm-hmm. And the way I sort of got around that was, 1, they're coming to me, they're paying me. And so that's 1. And 2, I think as long as you give a nice dose of reality with kindness. Mm-hmm. So something I do is I always ask permission first before I give feedback. I've only had one person in 13 years say no. And then I just kept my big mouth shut. Okay. So, but otherwise, when they say yes, I say the thing. I don't like to sugarcoat, but if I see something, and I never tell anyone something that's difficult to change. If I think it costs a ton of money or years down the line, I'm not going to suggest it. But if I think there's a change on the margins that's really going to increase or improve the results, easy.
Right. Why not?
Right.
You know, you're there to help people. And it's funny with the, like, can I give you feedback?
Yeah.
That's actually, I don't know when I started doing this, and it doesn't happen often, but that is how I approach conflict in my marriage.
I think that's great.
But it's like, it's nothing, it's not ever intense. Like, Jake will be sitting on the couch, like playing Xbox or sitting at the desk doing work, and I'll be like, is this a good time for feedback? Like, I'd really appreciate if you stop leaving your pants on the chair. Like,
that's great.
Something so little, but that's just like the way I've decided to go in on it.
I think that's great. Or like I've even with friends said to them, this is going to be an awkward conversation. If you started out off like that, it's like you've gotten the hard part out of the way. Yeah. That's so much what you're doing. That's so much better than walking on eggshells. I know people who will quietly resent the pants for years and then blow up about something else when it really could have been resolved with just the pants.
Totally. And at first it is just the pants, and then it turns into something else if you don't address it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think it's also the same thing. Like, I love the concept of if a friend is venting to you, you can say, hey, like, do you want advice or do you just want me to listen?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everyone jumps into advice mode. I have to do that with if my mom is listening, I'm sorry, but I have to do that with my mom because maybe you're the same, like, I'll call and just want to share something.
Right.
And then, you know, maybe it's whatever the culture, she'll find the thing that is like the one thing to annoy me a little. And then I have to be like, I was just calling to vent.
We'll try again later.
Yeah.
Okay. How did you get into dating coaching? Where did A Little Nudge stem from?
Good question. So you don't study, date coaching in school or online dating in school. So I was a really early adopter of online dating. It's embarrassing to say the year, but I started in 2001. Nobody did online dating in 2001.
Well, apparently other people did because there were people for you to match with.
I met people, yes. So I started with JDate, and I was in college. And I just thought, this seems like a fun new way to meet people. And so I did that, on and off for years. And my background's actually in economics and business. So what does an economist do? Starts a spreadsheet. So I started a spreadsheet of my own online dating experience. Initially, it was so I didn't accidentally write to the same person twice.
That, you know what?
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said.
Because before you use like Alana, Erika, you would use like, fun guy New York as your username. And I mean, some of the ones on JDate I still remember. My favorite, but not favorite, was hung like a mezuzah.
Shut up.
I cannot.
Oh my God.
You definitely don't want to accidentally write to hung like a mezuzah twice.
Oh my God.
Or once. But anyway, so I was keeping a list. So initially it was just a list of names that I knew I had already written to. And then I was like, I can measure things in here. What's my response rate? Yeah. So I started tracking in a different column, who wrote back. And then I was like, okay, of those who write back, what's my conversion rate to a date? Exactly. And so I made little tweaks to my own profile and my messages to increase both the conversion rate and the response rate. That's when my friends started asking me, like, what are you doing that I'm not? You're going on good dates. You're going on a lot of dates. And so I started just sort of on the side, writing their profiles and giving them advice. At the time, I worked at Fannie Mae in Washington, D.C., and sitting in a cubicle was not for me.
Retweet.
Yeah.
You can say that again.
Sitting in a cubicle was not for me. So I quit my job in 2011 and started a Little Nudge. So
Wow.
13 and a half years ago. And so some of what I do has changed as the online dating sites change, as more apps come out. I started before Tinder. Things are more instant gratification now and faster and shorter messages and more texting versus email style. But the advice hasn't really changed in terms of like people are people. And so I evolve as all of the sites do, but yeah, so I've been doing it for a long time.
Well, that's interesting to hear that the advice hasn't really changed, because I feel like with social media nowadays, and everyone listening is like, Alana, again with social media, but I feel like we'll see a phrase and we're all like, wow, that's the most earth-shattering, groundbreaking phrase ever. But it's like, that's been said in 1,000 different ways for 1,000 different years.
Exactly. Like ghosting, unfortunately, that has always been a thing. It just has a cutesy name, which I hate because it gives a cutesy name to something that's really mean. Or, there are a lot of buzzwords these days. But when it comes down to it, people's feelings are going to be the same over time. People's needs are going to be the same. Maybe a little different in terms of, okay, I need a text back within 3 hours now versus I needed a phone call back in our parents' generation.
Concept. It's you're sitting there, staring at your phone, waiting for it to happen. And I remember having a conversation with my dad about dating, and maybe for some content thing, and he was like, yeah, like ghosting, you guys think that's new? Like, I would sit by the phone and they would never call.
Well, exactly. I was talking to my mom about this over Thanksgiving, and she said the same thing. She's like, it was interesting. She said, she gave me feedback. And she said, she follows me on Instagram, which I find hilarious. And I was like, what % of my advice do you agree with? And she's like, about 80. And I said,
that's
I'll
a good
take
number.
it.
Yeah.
And I said, is the 20% the closure text? She goes, it is. She goes, everyone needs closure these days. She goes, I didn't need closure. I'm like, yeah, because you didn't have a text, an Instagram, a TikTok to look at to see that someone's still viewing your stuff. And so we had an interesting conversation about it, but none of the concepts are that different.
When you say the closure text,
Like if someone ghosts you, and what do we even mean by ghosting? Because I feel like people use that very liberally now.
you never hear from them again. You want to.
Right. You've asked them something. You've made yourself vulnerable in some way. You've texted them asking them out again and they don't answer. Ghosting. Okay. So my philosophy is if someone has done that to you after a decent period of time of you like knowing this person, dating this person, rather than just letting it go, which to me says, I'm okay with this behavior. Treat me like, poop
Shit.
emoji.
We can
yeah.
say
Okay. I suggest something like, disappointed I never heard back from you. Really enjoyed the time we spent together. Best of luck. Even though that closure text is not for their benefit, it's for you to basically release yourself. Say, I'm better than this terrible behavior. I'm moving on. Don't do it again.
A friend of mine actually did this last weekend. We were together and we were talking about how she went on this amazing date with this guy, and he was literally saying to her, like, I'm going to marry you. Like, we're going to get married. Like,
That's a red flag in itself.
Totally. But she was like, I could not believe that, like, I never heard from him again and that he didn't ask me out after, like, the way he behaved on this date.
Yeah.
And 3 weeks had gone by and she's, like, over it. She's talking to someone else, like, doesn't care. But she was like, that was just a weird interaction.
Yeah.
And I want to say something. And so she texted him.
Okay, what did she say?
She said, hey, something along the lines of like, hey, just wanted to reach out and say it was super confusing to not hear from you after hearing you say all these things about like our future and stuff on our first date.
Right.
It's totally okay. I just wanted to let you know, like, that was a bit frustrating and I don't really appreciate it. And she expected him to not respond.
I would expect him to not respond. Yeah.
He actually sent back like a long, like, it took up the whole,
whole
thing.
What did it say?
Saying
how busy he was.
Saying like stuff came up like with his family and with his work. That's no excuse. He's so sorry. He doesn't usually behave like that. And like, he appreciates her calling him out on it. Okay. And I think that went the best it could have gone.
I agree. This is going to be an overgeneralization, but I do think in general, men can be more in the moment than women. I think he meant all of those things when he said them. I think it's crappy that he then, squirrel the minute he left the date. But it's funny. I sometimes think men are better at being in the moment, but then lack the follow through.
Yeah. Okay, so 2025.
Yes.
Brand new. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I should have started off with this. It's okay. We're all in that coming out of that like what day is it phase. Dating Sunday.
Yes.
For those who are unfamiliar, the most active online dating day of the year. coming up this Sunday. And if you're not listening to this in the first week of the new year, that's okay. We're still going to give you tons of tips for setting yourself up to achieve your dating goals.
Yep.
What do you think is the number one thing that people are doing that holds themselves back from finding what they're looking for?
Oh, God. I could probably tell you the number top 10.
We could do this for 10 hours.
I would say, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about practical things you can do to improve your dating life, but I would say the number one thing is a mindset. A lot of people who I work with think it shouldn't take work to meet somebody. Somebody should just fall out of a tree onto their couch and now they're in a relationship. And it's frustrating when I'm working with someone and I see they're not putting effort into their profile. They're not sending messages on the apps and they're somehow expecting their results to be what they want. And so the number one thing is know that anything important in life takes work and it doesn't make the outcome less sweet. You know, if you get laid off from a job, you're not going to sit around. No, you're going to put together your cover letter, your resume. You're going to send them out. You're not going to stop if, you know, maybe the first few don't get back to you or maybe your interviews don't go well. You're not going to be like, well, working's not for me. Of course not. And so I would say it's an attitude shift to know that to get what you want, putting in the work is necessary.
Yeah. And it's not that it makes it less sweet when you get it. It actually makes it more sweet.
Makes it more sweet because you put yourself out there in that way.
And you met people who weren't for you and you figured out what you don't want and what you do want. And then you found that person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So whatever that means to you, whether it means putting together your profile, whether it means starting from scratch, sending a certain number of messages every day, doing a certain number of swipes every day. I recommend going to 3 in-person events a month if you can. Oh,
so if anyone's into setting resolutions.
Yeah.
You know what? That sounds realistic too.
I try to make it realistic. I'm not going to say 3 a week. I mean, that's out of control. I'd be tired. But 3 a month, maybe one is some sort of dating thing. Maybe it's a speed dating. Maybe it's some sort of happy hour for singles. And the other 2, whatever the heck you want. Maybe it's a comedy show and you bring a friend and you just vow to talk to one new person.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Start small, baby steps.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. How can people set themselves up for success when it comes to their profiles? I know you have probably seen tens of thousands of profiles, many of them bad.
Many bad, yes.
What is the biggest don't and the biggest do for dating app profiles?
Oh, God. The biggest don't is this is a double negative. Don't not fill out your profile.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Like, I was on with a guy this morning and we looked at women's profiles and the ones who answered with 1 word for every Hinge prompt, so that makes their profile 3 words long. I told him not to bother. I said, she's clearly not invested in this or she's jaded about it. That means she's probably not checking the app, which means your message will go unread, which means you'll be frustrated. So I made him only write to people who filled it out with multiple words, which sounds like a low bar. Yeah. So I would say not filling out your profile is a negative. A positive is filling it out properly. And here's a little game. So if you're writing your profile, everyone in the room has their hand up. Okay, let's put our hands up. Barkley, put your hands up.
Barkley's paws in the air.
So if the profile says, I love going out to dinner. I talk to my friends on weekends. Oh, your hand is up if this applies to you.
Okay.
I love going out to dinner. I talk to my friends. I enjoy sleeping, and you have a dog. Okay, yes. So let's pretend for this purpose I do. There are so many people who that profile could describe. Okay, so now put your hand down when something doesn't apply to you.
Okay.
I compete in pun competitions.
My hand goes down. Erika's hand is still up.
Exactly. That was the best example I could think of. So try to find the things that make you different from everyone else in the room. So I like to call it name your 5. Just 5 nouns that describe you and nobody else but you. So I've done this game with people. Mine is probably puns, whiskey, crossword puzzles. I don't know, all the cheesies, Broadway musicals.
And that could easily go into something like My Simple Pleasures.
Exactly. Or on Bumble, you could just stick the words fan of puns, whiskey, Broadway music. What are 2 of yours? To put you on the spot. Sorry.
Omakases.
Oh, yes. Okay, we might have to do that at some point.
Done. Down. Going to one tonight. So excited.
Oh, my God.
And puzzles.
I love, jigsaw puzzles?
Like, yeah, like 1,000-piece.
Oh, that's so fun.
I got one under my couch. I have to show you my puzzle board later. I'm so passionate about it.
I'm really excited about that, and I want to compare omakase places. So anyway, so now we've just started a conversation with each other on a dating app, because I could say, have you been to Zen Sushi Omakase on the Lower East Side?
I haven't, but I'm going to Sushi by M tonight.
Okay,
on the Lower
it's my
East Side.
favorite. Anyway, that's now a conversation. Now we're talking.
Exactly. Now we have a connection based off of something that we wouldn't even know about each other had it not been in the profile.
Right. The best thing you can do, like I just said, is set yourself apart and then be proactive about it. So, for example, on Hinge, with the free version of Hinge, which I think is just fine, which, like, let me just clear something up. People always ask, well, should I pay? I think most things in life that are important cost money. However, you're not, like, let's get rid of the misconception that you're getting better matches if you pay. The people you get are the same. You just get more functionality on the site. You get more filters. So perhaps the matches you get now are more appropriate for you if you filtered out, wanting children or religion or whatever's important to you. But they're not different. You don't get like a benefit. It's not like, ooh, a new pool of people.
I'm glad you said that, because there is a misconception that like the quote unquote better people are hidden behind the paywall.
Oh, everyone says that.
And that's not true. I mean, listen, like you might see, oh, like you could buy a rose to give to this person. Like, sure, they might be of a higher attractiveness score, whatever they do. But that doesn't mean that there aren't great people being fed to you too.
100%. And look, it's a company. They should make some money too. So like I have no issues with them charging for premium features. Anyway, just wanted to clear that up. But in the free version, you get to send 8 messages every day on Hinge. And notice I didn't say send 8 likes. I said send 8 messages. I want everyone sending a unique, personalized message to 8 people every single day. Do it Monday through Friday. Now you've sent 40 messages a week. Even though response rates are notoriously low. Why? Because 1, who knows? We don't know people's preferences. But 2, if someone's not diligent, they might not see your message. Regardless, I just want people to give themselves the best odds.
Yeah. And you know what? 40 a week, you probably shouldn't be sending much more than that.
No, that seems good. It might take 15 or 20 minutes every morning. So I tell my clients, do it 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening, put it away. You can't get addicted, obsessed with it. Just like send your stuff in the morning, check it later. You're done. If you need to reward yourself with chocolate, whatever, it doesn't matter.
And if that's not working, that's when it's time to, show your profile to a friend, work with a dating coach to get your profile really reviewed and make it represent you. Like you have to go back to the basics and say, okay, I'm not finding the people that I want. Maybe there's something going on here where I can fix it.
Often there are little things that even a friend wouldn't know, because your friends already love you, right? Obviously. But so I do love when someone comes to me and they can't figure out what's going on. And if I can see something immediately, like this morning, okay, I was on a really nice guy, but his first picture, his hand was just placed in a funny way. It wasn't weird or anything, but looked like he was about to grab his crotch. He was not. He was wearing a suit.
If you're seeing that immediately.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was the first picture. And I'm like, exactly. If I'm seeing it, let's pretend I represent an average person. If I'm seeing it, that means 50% of people think that.
And people are overanalyzing everything on someone's profile when they're debating matching with them.
Everything. Or like I've told women before, like I'll see their hands on Zoom and I'll be like, are you wearing those rings when you go out? And often it'll be like, yeah. And I said, well, people won't approach you. They think you're married. And she'll be like, but it's on my other hand or it's on my middle.
Men don't know.
Oh my God. If there is a ring in the vicinity of a finger on a hand.
I think Jake still doesn't know what hand it's supposed to go.
It could be up your arm.
Yeah.
People still think you're married.
Yeah.
And so I recommend like naked fingers when you go out if you want to be approached.
Yeah, agreed. Aligned on that. Okay. I mean, listen, there's so much that we could talk about. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Jake just texted me that he's coming home for a call at 2:15. No.
Okay.
No, Jake, sorry. Hold my mic. I'm going to leave this in. This is the reality of the behind the scenes. But hold my mic.
Hi, Jake.
To tell them about your tuna sandwich.
Oh, well, here's what I had for lunch today. I had a tuna sandwich, and this might be controversial, but I had it on raisin pecan bread. This is how we did our mic test earlier, so we know all about my lunch already. But I like the savory and the sweet, so I'm a weirdo, and I also, please don't disown me or cancel me. I get a bagel with lox often on a raisin bagel.
Ooh.
Any comment? Feedback? May I have feedback?
So chiming in over here. I feel like I'm a big like sesame or everything.
Yeah.
But I've heard good things.
I like that sweetness with the salty. Anyway, very controversial order, but I just do it, I eat it in the privacy of my home. So anyway,
we're back.
Okay.
Jake may or may not be coming home.
All right.
Okay. Bad communication there on my part about our shared living space. But anyways, there's so much we could talk about.
Okay.
Guys, I highly recommend check out at a Little Nudge on Instagram.
Thank you.
For so many tips and tricks. Not tricks. I don't want to say tricks. I don't want to say tricks. Tips.
Yeah, but tips and tricks. It doesn't matter.
Tricks, whatever.
Pointer,
Yeah,
whatever
sure.
you want to call it.
Everyone gets what I'm saying.
People like the word hacks if
Yes.
you want that.
Hacks
Whatever.
to online dating.
Yeah.
A must follow.
Thank you.
Okay. There are so many listener questions
my
that
God.
we got
Okay.
when I posted that you were coming on. So
Okay.
I feel like we have to help the people out.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. The first one, I actually think this is a really cool question for you.
Okay.
Does your work make you more disappointed in humans or inspired by them?
Ooh. I don't want to sound negative, but I have learned a lot about people over the last 13 years. And I will say some of it is negative.
Yeah.
I've learned that everyone over, I don't know, arbitrarily, let's say 50, thinks they look young for their age.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I didn't need to know. And I just smile and nod, What is looking your age anyway? We all look our age because we are our age. I find that people want results without putting in the work.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something I also wish I didn't know, but I do. So I couldn't say. I work with some incredible people, and I don't know if I'm answering this adequately.
No,
but
you are. It's a hard question.
But I will say, I think just technology, not just dating, makes people worse. There's no question about that. When people can hide behind a screen, they act worse. And that makes me feel really sad because I do look at these profiles every single day. And I post some of the really horrible ones. And
my jaw drops
my
once
jaw
a
drops.
week.
And part of me is hesitant to post that because I don't want anyone to feel like, well, this is what it's like out there. I do it partially for entertainment value, but also like to give people permission to block those people and not entertain those people. And that is a sad part of humanity that I think we have all learned, since the advent of social media and all of that. So I don't want to sound negative, but I have picked up some things I sometimes... Okay, I'm going to say something. Maybe this is too honest. Something that bothers me every day that I have learned in doing this is that when people come to me, this is a very personal thing for them. They're single and they don't want to be. I learn about people's latent biases that I don't even know they have. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about race, religion, ethnicity. On the one hand, I'm really glad people feel comfortable sharing with me their, I'm going to put it in quotes, preferences. Mm-hmm. But I do sometimes wonder, and I'm sorry if this is too controversial for your podcast, but I do sometimes wonder, where is the line between preference and prejudice?
Yeah.
Because I sometimes at the end of a day, I might be on 6 coaching calls in a row. I want to cry sometimes when I hang up that last one because I've seen 3 people just blatantly reject everyone of a certain race or religion or ethnicity or fill in the blank and make these flippant comments that they think are nothing, and yet they build up for me. And I'm not one of those empaths. I don't take on other people's stuff, but you hear enough of it.
It's
sad. I'll sometimes go to dinner with a friend right after work and tell them I need 10 minutes to just talk about nothing and order a cocktail because it is grating on me. And I'm not here to change people's minds, but I do ask people sometimes the why behind their choices. Like if they make a quick, I would never, all blank are blank. Oh, I don't want to touch that. But sometimes I will ask why. And it usually comes down to one bad experience. Yeah. And I have to be the one to say, well, maybe you try again. I'm not attracted to blank race. Ugh, that's my worst one. And I'll say, well, I'm sure there's white guys you're also not attracted to. Right. Like, why lump everyone together? And again, I'm not going to change people's minds, but if I get one person to think about the why and maybe question themselves, I feel like I've done my job.
Yeah, I think it's great that you ask why.
Depends on my mood, but
I feel like, yeah, you could make the argument of like, okay, well, this is a woman talking about a certain race of a man. It's like, okay, well, has a man hurt you in the past? Yes. Okay, so are you going to write off all men and date women now?
Right. It's not it's often not rational. It's societal. It's family pressure. It's
Right.
familiarity. And again, it depends on my mood. It depends on how tired I am. It depends on how long I'm working with this client. Because if it's a one-off session, I'm not going to solve the world's problems in one session. And who am I to think I could? And who am I to say their preferences are wrong? No one's wrong or right. But if I feel like I have a little inroad to just question it, I will try to do that.
Have you ever stopped working with a client?
Yes. It doesn't happen often, but I'll tell you an example. It was terrible. I didn't like myself after this call because I got past a point where I should have. It was she signed up for 4 coaching sessions, okay? I think this was our 3rd, and she was already being very judgmental about people based on their looks, and it was already bothering me because I watch people swipe,
Yeah.
you know, and that's you learn a lot about people. So anyway, at the end of our 3rd call, she was looking at a guy on Bumble, and he had maybe he was cross-eyed or had a lazy eye or something. And she zoomed in on his eye and she goes, "Can you even imagine me going out with this guy?"
Oh my God.
And I am not a sarcastic person. I'm generally, I like to think I'm a nice person, but I said something. I was so to the point, I go, "How dare he roam this earth?" And I knew when I got to that point, I didn't like myself in that way because I'm not like that. And so I could have handled it better. You're
human too.
I know. I said to her, "I just don't think I can do the 4th session. I'll refund you." She was taken aback by that, but I felt comfortable with my choice. She then sent me a pretty unsavory email saying, "I want my money back for the 3rd session because you were so judgmental to me." And I thought about it for a second. I thought, I don't want the money. You know, it's to wipe my hands clean.
Yeah.
I must have done an okay job handling it because she messaged me months later that she was in a relationship. And look, if she's happy, I'm happy. But so I have fired clients before. I know if it exhausts me to a point where I can't be my best self anymore, it's probably not worth it to me.
Absolutely.
And it took me years to be comfortable firing a client. Because when you start, 13 years ago, I took any client because I was starting. Right. And now I feel very lucky to be at a point in my life and my career where I want to work with people who I really want to vouch for them, you
Absolutely.
know?
Yeah.
To be my favorite client, all it takes is a thank you. If a client says thank you to me over text, I'm like, "I love you too."
Yeah.
You know?
100%. I've started to get to a point with some of my coaching clients where Jake and I were walking down the street the other night and I was like, "Okay, it's Saturday night. I know what 2 of them are doing right now and I'm dying to know how it's going." And I'm
that's a good feeling.
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, wait. Speaking of texting, I knew we were going to have way too much to talk about.
Okay, I know.
But speaking of texting, before we jump to the next question.
Okay.
We need to talk about the fact that you text for
on
some
the
clients.
apps, yes.
Tell me everything.
Okay. So a service I offer 2 services. One is coaching. I call it I do the work with you or I do the work for you. Yeah. With you is coaching. I'll teach you how to do it. You do it yourself. For you, as crazy as it sounds, is I call it digital matchmaking. I do your online dating for you. So I only take a very few, number of clients for that one because it's extremely time consuming and I'm doing it all myself. I used to have employees and it's back to me. Customer service is really important to me. And I like working with all of my clients one-on-one.
Yeah.
And so I write their profile. I get to know them in depth. I write their profile. I also get a sense of their writing style, their humor. I'm never going to make a pun for a client who would never make. I made that mistake about 10 years ago. I wrote a limerick as a client. She goes, "Erika, I would
never do this.
Never." I'm so sorry. I will never write a limerick again.
That's so funny.
So I really try to get a sense of who they are. And I work so closely with every client, hand in hand. We're texting all the time. But yes, I am doing the legwork for them. And I get the natural question, doesn't that seem disingenuous? Isn't it it's not catfish. It's their profile.
Right.
I just want to facilitate people getting to the date because so many people, so many people get stuck in the texting back and forth. Someone drops the ball, never to be heard from again. And so I try to be as efficient as humanly possible. I definitely get people on dates sooner than they would ever do it on their own. Because I don't want to talk for them.
Right.
I want to just get them on a date, see if you have chemistry, and then you're off.
So what is the key to getting them on the date?
So maybe a few messages back and forth on each side. And then if I'm working, okay, let's say it's a straight male client. If he's my client, I can then say, hey, I'm really enjoying our conversation. Would you be interested in meeting for a drink next week? She says yes. I suggest a couple days. Women love decisiveness. I'm like the most suave guy you have ever met because I know exactly what women want, right? My male clients like kill it.
That's awesome.
And keep in mind, I only take on clients who I think I can accurately represent.
Right.
I'm not going to take someone where I feel like our styles are vastly different, our writing is vastly different, or if I don't like them, if I don't want to put them in a position, if I don't feel comfortable with them, like vouching for them, it's not a client I'll take on. But anyway, so I make all of the arrangements. I keep, big piece of my advice that some people agree with, some don't. I keep arranging the entire date through the app. Numbers are only exchanged one day before for contingencies. I do not let my clients text before a date ever.
What if the person you're talking to on the other end of the app asks for the number?
I'll suggest a date instead. And so rather than saying no to the number, which is a rejection, I upgrade them. I say, oh, that could be fun. Or might be even more fun to, compare travel notes in person. I'm free Wednesday or Thursday. Either work for you?
Perfect.
If they ask to talk. Now, I know some people like a video chat or a phone call beforehand. Then I'll ask the client, do you want to do a video chat? Are you comfortable with doing a video chat? If they say yes, I arrange the video chat just like I would a regular date, time, date, no nebulous phone calls. And then I'll do the number exchange.
I love it.
Yeah. I try to control as many pieces as I can, given that nothing about people, you can't control people. Right. But if I can control the process to the point where they at least get on the date, I'm good. And I tell clients, I can't guarantee you're going to like each. I can't guarantee anything except my work. My job is to present you opportunities. Right. You take them. That's it.
Has anyone ever run into an issue where they've told somebody, been transparent of I've been working with this dating coach and she was actually the one writing for me and talking to on the app?
I mean, people share.
Yeah.
How they react. I tell a client when they're thinking about hiring me, and again, I take very few clients for this package, but I tell them you're outsourcing. Again, I try to keep the conversation short. If I don't know something, by the way, I'll just text the client and be like, have you been to the Bahamas? Yes, great. And then I'll be like, yes, I've been to the Bahamas. But I tell them how or when you share that is completely up to you. I don't want to be.
There's no expectation.
They could do whatever they want. Right. Yeah, it was funny. So there's a guy I used to work with here in 2016. He's married now to someone I found for him on Match.com.
Oh my God.
And I met her once. He invited me to see his son play in some band where I met her. And she gave me a hug. And she was like, I loved your messages.
Stop. That's incredible.
I know.
Oh
no, I'm not saying that's the norm, but it was pretty fun for me.
That's awesome.
Or one guy once, I still remember this guy, Greg, many years ago. He didn't hit it off with a woman on the first date, but he mentioned that I had written his profile, and then she hired me.
No way.
I was like, this is great marketing.
That's awesome. I love that. That is so cool.
Thanks.
Okay. The next question says, how can I approach dating in the right way when I've never been in a serious relationship?
I would say, even if you've never been in a relationship, you would approach it no differently from any of the other advice. You would still do the same things because ultimately, having been in a relationship, while, you learn a lot about yourself, every person you meet, if you're going to start a relationship with them, it's a new experience for both of you. And so they've never been in a relationship with you, and you've never been in a relationship with them. So I wouldn't approach it any differently than just you're dating. Yeah,
I completely agree. I think you've been in relationships.
Sure, of course.
You have friendships. You have coworkerships. You have relationships of all different types.
Right.
Just because you haven't been in a romantic, committed, serious relationship doesn't mean you don't know how to, communicate and have boundaries. And there are a lot of people who have been in relationships who might be in a worse position than you.
There are people in relationships. Yeah. And I will say I do get questions sometimes of how do I tell someone I've never been in a relationship? One, I don't want you to feel like you have to be on the defensive for that. It could be, how do I tell someone anything? Fill in the blank. Yeah. And we all have a story. And if someone is extremely judgmental to you for not having been in a relationship, that's a reflection on them.
Yeah, great. There's your answer. That's not the right person
Exactly.
for
That
you.
means someone's not willing to give you a chance. And that's really their loss.
Yeah. I had a recording come out in December. If you guys want to scroll back a few episodes to listen to that one, the title was I'm 34 and I've never had a boyfriend. And her name is Paige Crotcher. She did a really great job explaining how she just owns her story.
Good.
And I think that's the best thing we all could do.
I think owning any story, exactly. Like, so much of life is how you frame it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you ask me what I did last night and I tell you, I'm making this up, but I could be like, oh, you know, I was kind of lazy. I watched Dancing with the Stars. I made myself something. You'd be like, ugh. But if I said, you know, I had such a busy weekend that I couldn't wait for a night by myself. I recorded Dancing with the Stars. I missed the finale. I made myself a pasta. Oh, it was perfect. You respect me and like me more when I say it the second way.
And it sounds appealing, and now I want to do that.
Exactly. You want to watch with me and you want my pasta. I did neither of those things, sorry, but
But you can.
I could, exactly.
You can. Anyone can. Yeah, I think that's such a perfect example and more of a reason why, like, just own your story. And, you know, we all have things that we're afraid to share that we might not be proud of, that we might not feel comfortable with.
Absolutely.
But that's being human.
But also, yes, and keep in mind, though, if someone keeps prodding you, that's also a them thing. Like, if someone keeps, like, on the first date especially, like, I don't want you to be talking about anything that serious on the first date. I'd rather you leave not knowing anything new except, oh, I laughed. I had a good time.
Right.
I know I had a good time. We smiled. You're like, I felt good about myself. Too many people try to ask these questions out of context to, quote, not waste time. Like, when did you get divorced? Why did you get divorced? And I know other dating coaches out there give advice like, try to get that information now. Did they cheat? What would their ex say? Oh God, I wouldn't want to bring my ex onto a first date. Like,
No.
Goodness gracious. And so I would try to keep the first date light. And you can always say to someone, I'm happy to share more about that once we get to know each other.
Totally.
That sort of punts it to the future.
And I think the best way to, you know, maybe breeze the edge of those conversations, I loved doing this when I was single. I would just say, like, how's dating been for you?
Okay.
And you would learn so much from somebody's response. Like, you might learn that they're looking for something serious or that they're not looking for something serious. You might learn that they, you know, just got out of a new relation or recently got out of a relationship, but they had already known for a while that that relationship was going to end. And so they're super excited now to meet their person.
Great.
Like, and then that's also the place where, you know, maybe something a little heavier might come up, but you're not going to get into it. You're just going to, you know, bond over the fact that you're both single and trying to meet somebody. And I had such great conversations from that one question.
That's great. I hope it didn't veer too much towards the negative, because I could see a lot of people saying, ugh, I got ghosted, I this, I that, which I guess is information.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was more just to learn a little more about, like, what the other person was looking for and, like, what they like doing on dates.
Great.
Yeah.
I like a fun question. Like, if you weren't out with me, you know, what's today, you know, whatever day of the week it is, if you weren't here with me right now, like, what would you be up to right now?
Love that.
I love that, because it gives you a glimpse into what they actually do on a regular Tuesday.
Yeah, I like that question a lot. Okay. The next one. Are you noticing more people wanting casual dating / polyamory / situationships now versus 5 years ago?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if I'm noticing that more people want it, but I think we have more language around it than we used to. Like ENM, ethically non-monogamous. I see that in a lot of profiles. And I wonder, was that always the case and we now have the language, or do people want it more now? Maybe I don't know the answer to that question. So I think people are more comfortable perhaps sharing what they're looking for now. So I don't know, chicken or egg. I'm not sure.
No, that's a good point. Like, in a way, it's more mainstream, but is it just because it's being talked about more?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll do some research into that one. Okay. What modern dating norms make you miss, quote unquote, the way dating used to be?
Oh my God. I don't know what the way dating used to be. I got a question once. This is going to answer this. It was a woman who said, we went on a date last night. We were out from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. It's now 1:20 p.m. the next day. Am I ghosted? That makes me miss how things used to be.
Yeah.
We are all so connected that people want instant. If he didn't text, if she didn't text in 2 hours, what's going to happen? And it activates this anxiety in people. And that's annoying. So I think I think technology is amazing in its way, but the fact that we can all be so connected through multiple sources to people now is that more trouble than it's worth? Sometimes I think so. Or I hate when on Bumble, it shows your location. If you went on a few dates with someone and I'll get a text from a client, now their profile says they're in Boston. What are they doing in Boston? Why did they update it? Oh, it's too much information. So in that way, I think I do miss things from before. But you also have so much more access to new people now. You could be swiping in Paris now. That's neat. So neat. Okay, now
it is neat. It quite literally is neat. No, I talked to a
missed
couple.
the tape recording. Anyways,
I talked to a couple last night who he traveled a lot for work, and so he was swiping in New York when he wasn't living in New York.
Right.
And he matched with her who was in New York, and he decided instead of waiting for 2 weeks for his business trip to New York,
came early.
He was going to get on a plane
Good
and
for
take her
him.
out on a date.
I love that.
And they're getting married next year.
I think that's amazing. I think with technology comes much good, and then some negatives.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, the fact that you can see that somebody is active on Instagram or watched your story and hasn't responded to your text, and then you assume, okay, are they over me or are they with somebody else?
That's very frustrating.
The anxiety that comes from that it eats you alive.
It really does.
Yeah.
So in that way, it used to be better. Yeah. Sometimes ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes there is such thing as too much information.
Yes.
Ooh. What if his parents don't approve for religious reasons? I love him and it feels sad to think about marriage.
Parents don't approve of you for religious reasons? Is that?
I guess she is not the religion that they want their child to be with.
He should be in your corner. Mm-hmm. If he's making that choice to be with you, he needs to tell you. Because if that disapproval is coming out to you, he should have blocked that before it came out to you, because that's so unfair. So I would say, as hard as that is, as long as your partner is supportive of you and your relationship and acts as that buffer to we can't change his parents. Yeah. But as long as he protects you, I would let that be of some comfort if you can.
Yeah. And make
what
sure
do you think?
Make sure he's also on board.
Yeah, make sure he's on board.
Like, I think if you're in a relationship with this person and this is already a tough topic, it's worth having those hard conversations. You need to have those hard conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But he should be your supporter and the one to reassure you that, while my parents might have these beliefs, those are not my beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. That's tough.
Oof, really tough. I know. These are fun.
Yeah, I know. Such great questions. I love nothing more than getting like a great handful of questions. I feel like I constantly need male validation. I find if I'm even just texting a guy a few messages a day here and there, I'm going on apps less because I'm getting my fulfillment from a few texts. How do I stop this need for attention?
That's tough.
Yeah. That's one of the downfalls of technology and the dating apps is that validation that we can
look,
get.
Who doesn't like validation? Right. So there's nothing wrong with enjoying validation. Who doesn't? But is there some way that you can get that validation internally or from other people in your life without a stranger? Because it means nothing when it comes from a stranger, but it means a lot if it comes from internal, if it comes from your friends, from your family. I don't have a great answer. What do you think?
It's so hard. I mean, I definitely felt the same. Like if I had a guy to text, I was like, great, like someone's into me. But 99.9% of those times, that person was not right for me. It was just a distraction. It was something to occupy my mind. I think taking time away from your phone is the best thing you can do. I love, 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 love phone-free activities. Yeah. And I think anytime you can like try and do one phone-free activity or 1 hour off of your phone each day.
I think that's a great idea.
I think that will give you so much. Yeah. And you'll start to need that validation less and less.
Yeah. And also make sure when you are talking to people, you don't put your life on hold. You're still doing all of the things that make you, that make you interesting. And then, when you do get validation from someone, it's more than just validation of your looks. It's validation that you do interesting things, that you live an interesting life. And that validation will mean so much more anyway.
Yeah, totally. The more you fill up your cup and feel like you have a whole life, the less you need it. Okay. We have
But it's not wrong to like to feel like, who doesn't like to be told they're pretty?
totally.
You know?
Totally.
You're very pretty, by the way.
You too.
Thanks.
See, we validated each other. Okay. This is a bit of a longer one.
Oh boy.
Let's get into it. I feel like I can't trust myself anymore on if someone is good for me and my attachment style hits or if a person is a red flag. I, female 32, recently met a guy from Hinge. We were just talking a bit on there and he seemed nice. I was already a bit annoyed as he suggested that on a Sunday at, I don't know what time this is. It says 00:50. So is that 12:50 a.m.?
I guess so.
Okay. So he suggested around midnight to meet that very day as if I wouldn't have any other plans at all. A few days after was a dinner date and I paid my half, so I don't owe anyone anything. It was,
Well, let's stop there.
Okay.
If someone offers to take you out and offers to pay, you owe them a thank you. I'll just stop there.
I like that.
Okay.
I like that. It was casual chit chat at first, but then he started asking questions like how my last relationship ended and when and what I want from a relationship and a partner. And he told me family is super important to him because his dad died. I think it was some years ago.
Okay.
And now it's just him and his mom. So since Tuesday, he's been texting me twice like, hey, I'm thinking about you and how was your weekend?
Okay.
I feel very uncomfortable during this conversation and afterwards thinking about him. I've been in a relationship before where someone based his whole happiness on me who had a broken family too, and I feel so suffocated. Low key, he kind of reminded me of that. At least the same feeling came up. I'm so confused if these are red flags or if I'm just avoidant / dismissive because I just feel like I'd really like to have to force myself to interact with him more.
Okay. Can we summarize that?
Yes.
Let's paraphrase. So,
Yes.
So he asked her out last minute. She didn't like that.
Yep.
They eventually went on a date. He got really personal, and now he seems a little needy to her.
Yes.
Is that
and reminds her of her previous relationship where she felt like her partner had based his whole happiness on her due to a broken family.
But it sounds like he's only texting her 2 times a day.
Yes.
And just saying, how are you?
Yes, I agree. Hey, I'm thinking about you isn't, will you be my everything?
Right. So with this limited information, I would say let's not think beyond a second date.
I agree.
Go on a second date. See how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
If you still feel uncomfortable, you're not required to go out with this person again. But I don't know that I would necessarily attribute broken family or whatever else about your ex to this. Yeah, they may have had a similarity, but just based on this limited information, if he's texting twice a day and just, I'm thinking of you. Look, that's one that could go either way. If you don't like someone, it's creepy. If you do like someone, it's the most thoughtful. You're out to dinner with your girlfriends.
Ding.
You're like, oh my God, he said I'm thinking of you. What a creep. Or, oh my God, he's thinking of me. How nice. So I understand that this is veering towards creep, not necessarily because the answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
We need more data. And to get that data, you go on a second date. That's all I would say. But if your gut is truly like ripping you up and saying, oh my God, I cannot have this person in my life, then don't go on a second date.
Yeah. The stakes are not that high right now.
They're not that high. Well said.
It's, do you want to get to know this person a little more or does the thought of that repulse you?
I just don't want to go down this path of like, he
Every
did this
person
and so
with-
it means
right.
this and so it means this. And now it's a repeat of my ex. I just can't draw those conclusions.
I also, I personally, and I know everyone's different, but I don't see any issue with at midnight from Saturday to Sunday asking like, hey, any chance you're free to do dinner tomorrow night? Like, I personally don't have a problem
So
with
like
that.
if someone texted you at midnight on Saturday and said, are you free for dinner tomorrow night?
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, it's more the texting at midnight that's annoying than the asking to do the next day. Because, like, that's really late for some. I will say, if someone's texting after midnight, it does have a different sort of
on a
connotation.
weekend, for sure. But, I mean, I definitely went on dates where, like, we matched that morning and we were like, this is...
That doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But the after midnight text on, like, a Saturday night,
that could be
that
sus.
would bother me. Because it means, are you drunk? What are you doing?
Are you just, like, sad and lonely?
I personally wouldn't text anyone who I don't know at that time.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder if they were like already in a conversation. Yeah, we don't know.
I have no idea. But if I'm getting back to someone who I do know, I'll text them at any hour.
Totally.
They just better have their phone on silent.
Yep. Okay, let's do one more because I feel like this is a very relatable one.
Okay.
How do you help clients who continually get rejected after dates that they're excited about?
Ooh, that's a tough one. And it's hard because I can't be a fly on the wall on the date. Right. So what I can do is talk to you about what we can control. We cannot control who's attracted to you, who you're attracted to, who asks you out again, any of that. But we can control how's the conversation? Like we already talked about, I like to keep it light. We can control what we do. We can control where we sit. Okay. I try to tell clients to sit at a bar if they can, or catty corner at a table instead of across, because across feels very much like an interview. Next to a catty corner is a little more informal. You can have a more intimate conversation if you want to. You can be a little more like, you can be closer physically if you want to be.
Right.
You have distractions. Maybe the bartender's doing something interesting. I want to see what you're wearing. I want to see, I want to know all of the details so we can control. Are you showing up on time? Are you saying thank you?
What mood are you in when you walk into the
what
date?
mood are you in? Are you saying thank you? Are you coming in really stressed from work? Like you said, what mood are you in? These are the things we can control. We cannot control many things. So I would also probably ask you, have you been in a relationship before? Have you had success before? And if the answer is yes, then I have to ask why we're weighing more heavily these experiences, fully knowing that you have had success before. And then I might say, if you're going to hit it off with one out of every X number of people, I don't know if X is 2, 10. I have a former client who brags that she married the 26th Bumble date she went on. And she said to me, I thought it would be 100. 26 was nothing.
Okay.
And so it's really also putting things in perspective. Yeah. Just because the last, say, 6 dates didn't result in a second date, that doesn't mean tomorrow's won't.
Absolutely. I have a client right now who a few months ago, he came to me and said, I'm not getting second dates. And I don't know why. And
I hope you said, are you asking for them? Because sometimes people don't ask.
That's a good point. That is a very good point. You've been doing this longer than I have. A little nudge, everybody.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt. Okay.
No, but we started talking about like what hasn't worked in the past and his mindset and what he's really looking for. And I think one of the things we realized was he was matching with people who he wasn't that excited about. And so there wasn't really that much for them to connect over. And
interesting.
Once we pinpointed like what he really is looking for and, started having him really only swipe right on people he would have been excited to meet, he started getting all the second dates and third dates.
Interesting. That's great.
Yeah. So there is so much that you can look at and see like, okay, what am I doing now? And like, why isn't it working? And you can pivot.
You can definitely pivot, but also know to take it with a grain of salt.
Absolutely.
Because things could change tomorrow. And just because a few things have happened in a row maybe it is a pattern, but doesn't necessarily mean it's a pattern.
Absolutely. You got to kiss a lot of frogs sometimes.
Absolutely.
We could go for 20
I
more
know we
hours. This has been so fun. I should have gone back and listened to our old episode to figure out what you said to this question.
I should have too.
But since we don't remember, I'm going to ask it again.
If we don't remember, nobody remembers, so it's fine.
What is the best piece of dating or relationship advice you have ever received or have to give?
Oh my gosh. I wonder if I said this last time. My dad left me this weird voicemail when I was in college. Okay. He decided I was being too picky. And he's a jokester, and he goes, Erika, all men go bald. And then he goes, and they all have earwax, which it's nothing. I think he thought he was funny, but I still remember that because he was basically saying just like, give people a chance. I wonder if I said that last time.
I feel like this is the first time I've ever heard that.
You would probably remember.
I love
so
that.
all men go bald and have earwax, and that's it. No one's perfect.
No one's perfect. We're not perfect.
Although bald can be sexy, so that's no reflection on bald.
Absolutely. Earwax, maybe not so much.
Well, anyway.
I mean, everyone, there are people out there, who knows?
Who am I to say?
Knows?
But yeah, I think that's the answer.
I love it. This has been so much fun. Where can everybody find you? How can they work with you? All that.
Great question. You can find me anywhere online, alittle-nudge.com, at a little nudge on Instagram, anywhere. I offer a free 20-minute consultation if you sign up for that through my website, and we can talk through what option might be the best for you. Like I said, I do coaching. I can manage it for you, but we'll talk through what makes the most sense. To be perfectly honest, I often prefer coaching because I want to give people the tools. I want you to fly on your own. And that sometimes feels more rewarding to me.
Absolutely. Totally. All right. At a little nudge and a little nudge.com.
Yay.
Thanks, Erika.
Thank you.